bringing the energy today, or going to try to. We're going to try to bring the energy today as we break down or continue our all-star, not all-star. We're going to talk about the all-star game, but as we talk about our New Year's resolutions for NBA teams, we're going to switch over to the West. We did the East, so if you're looking for that, you are one episode off. You need to go back one more and you'll find it. But for this one, our warm-up, I did want to talk about the all-star voting, which is going on right now. So if you want to get in on that, now is the time to do that. And obviously, some quick early reactions to it. LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis, all passing over 2 million votes so far. And right behind them is DeMar DeRozan.
Hey, given the season that he's having, that feels fair. Good to see him given the love and being up there with the top of the top leaderboards. Are we going to have to watch LeBron and Giannis draft again? And that's kind of my only thing with this is I'm at a point where I'm tired of seeing LeBron draft every year. It was fun. I get the intensity.
Sure.
But it kind of sets the precedent for there being 10-year runs of this with a lot of the guys. I know there's a chance KD gets in there too, but
would you since it's Giannis, KD, Steph, and LeBron, personally, I saw in the article that NBA.com put out, they said right now there's a good chance it's Durant and Curry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that.
That's way more intriguing.
Yeah, former teammates. And then it goes who are you going to take, LeBron or Giannis? Or maybe you don't go. Maybe you go with teammates or somebody else down the line. But I could see that being very fun. But yes, I agree with you. I think they need to open it up to be I don't know, a way that they can have other players. It would be cool this year to see DeMar DeRozan pick a team.
Yeah, I don't want to see coaches do it because I think that could get real. When the players tamper with each other, it's fun. When the coaches start tampering, it's hey, knock it off a little bit. So I don't necessarily want to go on that end.
Right.
The two ways offhand that
what if you did it? What if you did it by the owners? The team.
I really don't want to see it. I don't want the owners anywhere near this. Are you kidding me?
The only reason I thought it would be kind of cool to see Mark Cuban put together an all-star team.
Yeah, that'd be even worse tampering somehow. I don't want any of those owners anywhere near this. The two ones that come to mind, if I were to switch it up and not just do current players in the league, would be have two greats from the WNBA do it. Get Candace Parker and Della Dawn, for example, or get Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi. Have
what
them
what if you did it off the all-star ballot, two people that are potentially going to go into the Hall of Fame get to pick the team. So how they always come out with that, they tell us who's going in, who's not, and if you just because they've been talking about him a lot, Dirk gets to do one this year.
Well, yeah, that would be my other thinking, and kind of the second point would be to bring back legends. If you had, even if it's a rival, so the obvious one in the NBA, if it's a rivalry, would be have Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson and have them draft their teams,
cool.
or even in more recent. So you mentioned Dirk. How cool would it be to have Dirk and Dwayne Wade draft NBA All-Star squads and have them go up against each other, given the history that they've had. I think Steph and KD from current players is super interesting in that regard. Obviously, it's different than LeBron and Giannis, but no, I would love
my vote. Well, Jokic is probably going to get the nod and be in the All-Star game, I would imagine.
I would sure hope so.
But if I would love for Markieff Morris and Jokic to put together a team.
Dude, he's been out 30 games, and it's kind of crazy. He earned that retaliation. Don't get me wrong. I don't think my stance has necessarily changed on that, but there were people who thought Markieff Morris was faking it, and it's no, he wasn't faking it.
No.
Him calling Jokic just sloppy fat boy on Twitter was just entertaining vocabulary.
I want to start. I wish I had done this a long time ago. Is just start a book of sports insults that players have used, like crazy ones, like that one, sloppy fat boy. I just want to save them.
Carmelo still got the best when he called the fan a glazed donut face ass or something.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is incredible. Like that one to me, that should be the name of the book, and then it should be
Yeah.
all the other ones after that. But that
Yeah.
is without a doubt still my favorite. It was so incredible.
We need to maybe we need to work on something like that. Or maybe that's just an episode where we go down the craziest sports insults that players have used. Either way, so back to the All-Star game stuff. John Morant is actually surprisingly third among West guards in All-Star voting. Luka's above him at number 2. Top 5 vote getters who haven't been an All-Star before. LaMelo Ball is on there. Andrew Wiggins is on there. So congratulations to those two. Now, the ones that NBA.com said were quote unquote head scratchers were Klay Thompson is 4th among guards. Kyrie Irving is 6th in the East. And Carmelo Anthony is in the top 10 for West front court players.
Yeah, I mean, which completely checks. They're all superstars, and
Yep.
so they just, they get the reputation bump. Obviously, it's ridiculous that
Do
Klay
you
Thompson, who hasn't played a game, who will be playing a game, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, he'll be back sooner than later. Finally, but of course, it's ridiculous that Klay Thompson wasn't play a game. That Kyrie Irving, who just started playing
he
again
might
this season,
and Klay, by the way, as of somebody listening to this, could be back. I mean, projection is he's coming back Sunday.
Sunday, yeah, Sunday against Cleveland is supposed to be the return. Super excited about that. Again, we're gonna get into that a little more when
awesome.
we talk Dubs here in a little bit. But of course, that's ridiculous. That it's face value. It should be guys that are playing. I mean, if we're strictly talking best players in the league, then of course Kyrie Irving should be in every single All Star game. I feel like Klay Thompson probably also should be in every single All Star game. Melo will always have that fan love. Like he just, Melo's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to get, because it is part of who fans want to see at the end of the day too. And that's always what I remind people is that it is an entertainment factor when the fans weigh in. I think fan voting is stupid as well, but I understand a lot of times where the perspective is coming from.
So I'm going to bring something up when we talk about the Warriors, and I don't want anybody to interpret this me saying Klay's value isn't high. He's not a good player. He is whatever.
We're already in real dangerous territory. I'm like, what ridiculous Klay Thompson take is about to come out of your mouth?
No. Because of how well Jordan Poole is playing, he's kind of been the guy that slid into his spot, right? Playing the shooting guard position. With his tremendous play and the way he's been playing, does it give you potential leverage or leniency to test waters on a potential Klay trade or maybe a Jordan Poole trade? Again, I know as a team you don't want to do that, and Klay's value is there, but I don't know. I just feel like there might be something to that. If you feel like that position is kind of covered by Jordan Poole now, could you use Klay if you were going to trade somebody to go get positions elsewhere that you could maybe benefit from and not have to share minutes? Because I wonder how that's going to go down the line. Obviously, Klay's going to be the starter, but Jordan Poole's been balling out.
I don't know if I really care how it goes down the line. That's the thing. And that's just like, yeah, if I'm playing 2K, I get the thinking there, but I think it's
right.
I think the answer is no for 2 reasons. One is they're going to be easing Klay Thompson back in. Like this, Klay Thompson hasn't played professional basketball in 2 years now.
Well, and I'd say after this season, right? So say the season's done, they either win or they don't. Maybe they make a good playoff run. Klay is back doing his thing, and you're in the off season looking at your team, and you've got your players, a lot of young guys who are balling out and coming back, and some that do have some injury concerns. And maybe this is a conversation we get to when we talk to about the Warriors in their New Year's resolutions. But I just wonder if that's something that will potentially happen this offseason.
Yeah, let me get back to it because we'll save it for there. We'll table that for the Dubs discussion because I got to be honest, I think I completely disagree with everything you said.
Okay.
So we'll get back to that in a little bit. John Morant being 3 is awesome. This was somebody was asking this on Twitter, and again, this is where I really should write these down and remember who asked that. But it sure feels like John Morant is I want to almost call it the like Dame Lillard category where it just feels like they're beloved by everybody that they're the one guy that's not on your squad that everybody roots for. That's how it feels like John, and rightfully so. Like John Morant, the way he plays is super entertaining. The Grizzlies are fun. They're a great watch. We're gonna talk about them a little bit here too as well. But yeah, that completely makes sense to me, and it's good to see him getting that recognition because at the end of the day, forget the popularity. Like this is a massive breakout season for John Morant and the whole organization, which we'll get into as well. Which we talked about John Morant's injury; they stayed afloat. That to me was the most impressive thing when they stayed afloat and kept winning. And you get John Morant back, they're good.
John Morant is one of the most stressful players to watch for me. Because he
just flies.
Because he's just flying in there, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, you're gonna get hurt. Like I get so scared, but he is so fun to watch. But he is like the opposite of Embiid. I'm equally as stressed when both of them are driving to the paint, but Embiid is just because he always falls over, and I'm always worried that's the injury. That's it. That's the season right there. Where John Morant, I'm just like, oh my god, dude, like, do you not care about yourself or the players that are in the paint right now?
Like, John Morant's reel of attempted dunks or just missed dunks that are outrageous is by far greater than everybody else. I mean, obviously the one that everybody will always flash back to initially was the one last year, or was his rookie year or last year, whichever one, when it was over Kevin Love, when he was trying to just completely like leap over him. But there's multiple instances of that now for sure. I mean, whenever we say the term high flyer, just put John Morant on the picture of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, either way, it's cool. Obviously, get your votes in for the All-Star game if you're interested in that. And we'll, see where it goes this year. But
it'll be fun. I like the new format overall. That is the one thing I feel like we've kind of, or at least on my end, I feel like I've been talking kind of negative about the All-Star game. I do like the new format. I think that's made it watchable.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point as recently as 2 or 3 years ago where you and I and even going all the way back with Tim, like we would have the discussion where like the All-Star game itself would be the worst part of All-Star weekend. Like it would be the dunk contest would be better, the skills contest would be better, the 3-point shootout would be better. Even the celebrity challenges, it felt like were better at some points. I don't feel that way about the All-Star game now, and I think that more importantly as anything is that you have a watchable product if you're the NBA.
Did we get an celebrity All-Star game lineup yet? Have we seen that?
I don't think so. No, I still think we're pretty far off from All-Star break. So
yeah, it doesn't say the celebrity game. I mean, you could buy tickets for it, but it doesn't look like there's anybody announced right now. No.
Yeah, we still got a little bit. I mean, especially with COVID too. Like that's the other thing. Obviously, like I feel like that's the one thing, of course, that's looming large over everything. We'll see what the weekend even looks like and if it happens, because if something gets sacrificed, that will be it. Yeah. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
At Drew Holiday, hashtag NBA All-Star. At Chris Middleton, hashtag NBA All-Star. At Bobby Portis, hashtag NBA All-Star.
You gotta love Giannis going to bat for his boys. I mean, no doubt about it. Giannis really stuck up for Drew Holiday, or not stuck up, because I feel like that's the wrong phrasing, but he was talking about Drew Holiday the other day in an interview, and just he said, he's like, look, if I'm an NBA team and I'm trying to win basketball games, you can't really get a better point guard than Drew Holiday. And I don't think anyone is going to suggest that Drew Holiday is the best point guard in the league, but the proof is kind of in the pudding with him playing winning basketball at this point. Like, come playoff time, when I'm in those late rounds, he is kind of a guy that I want there in the trenches. I mean, he more than showed that last year, because I mean, and if anything, with the Bucks run last year too, the validation with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton when they closed out Atlanta, like I think that shut a lot of people up in that regard. Like obviously the finals win would have regardless, but when those two had to carry the load when Giannis was out and was a genuine question mark, that should have shut everybody up on the Bucks court for a little bit.
Well, and even during their run, I think a big part of the reason they were able to make that run was adding Drew Holiday. Like he was the key.
And they gambled. Like, make no bones about it. Like, they gave up a ton of draft capital for Drew Holiday. It was 4 first-rounders. Like, that on paper, like, you see that and you have a heart attack unless it works. But it worked, and that's all that matters. It just has to work once. It's the same thing we said with the Kawhi Leonard trade back in the day. Like, is Toronto super bummed that he left? Absolutely, no doubt about it. It worked once, though, so it's hard to say you're a failure. When you have a title, that changes everything. Drew Holiday...
You can be sad you didn't get to run it back, but at the end of the day, it got you a trophy. So
Bucks hadn't won a trophy since the 70s. I
Right.
think they will gladly take that trophy any day of the week over
would,
maybe 4 draft picks.
and obviously it would be an entirely different conversation if they didn't win. We would probably be saying, man, they probably wish they hadn't given up all that draft capital.
Yeah, they would. They gambled.
Unless they went back and did it, like if it was only a year delay, like it took them another, you know what I mean?
It also is part of doing business with keeping Giannis too. Like at the end of the day, like Giannis pre last year, like there was a very real chance that he may have bolted if they took another early playoff exit like that. Obviously, they didn't. It was best case scenario, and now we're all locked in here. But if nothing else, too, Drew Holiday got that move, got Giannis to sign that max deal.
Yeah.
That obviously, with that's if that's the cost of business, so be it. You do everything you can to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo on your roster. So
I completely agree.
Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and follow us on Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We put videos of the podcast up there. You can chime in on the conversation, debate with us. You can do whatever you want. Just search Drive and Dish NBA podcast on YouTube.
And now a word from our sponsors.
All right. New Year's resolutions for the West.
If you want the East, go back to last episode, by the way. You're in the wrong place. Go check out the previous episode, and we'll talk about every Eastern Conference team, all 15 of them. The resolutions are there.
And the way we did that episode is we went by record. So we're going to do the same thing for this episode, which means we start with the Suns. So for the Suns, to me, my New Year's resolution to them would be don't get relaxed, because nothing right now for the Phoenix Suns matters. Like it's the regular season. We don't care about the regular season if we're the Phoenix Suns. We care about the playoffs. We care about going back. And this year you got to win a trophy. You know, like that's what this year is all about now. So to me, it's not getting relaxed. It's still making sure you understand your rotations and what players you're using going forward. And if you are going to be active during the trade deadline, I don't necessarily think they'll be, trying to do anything crazy, because like they're running it back. So to me, it's don't get relaxed and still keep pushing forward, even though you're in the number 1 seed again.
Yeah, I mean, the first check mark of the box with Phoenix, or the first question kind of going into the season, was after you lose in the finals, with the amount of just capital that takes, with the physical toll that it takes to go on a run like that, you worry about if they would have basically the intensity and be able to keep it up and keep playing at that high level. The good news for Phoenix fans is they have definitely checked that box. Obviously, being in first when we're recording this episode at the New Year, like they look like, you don't want to fast forward to the Western Conference Finals because nothing is for granted, or nobody should take anything for granted. But it sure feels like we're on a collision course for Warriors and Suns in the conference finals, with whoever comes out of that with a very, very clear chance to take home the NBA title. I think it goes without saying that Chris Paul is still hungry. Devin Booker is still getting buckets anywhere he can. And my kind of the New Year's resolution, it's tough because I want to see them get this done before the playoffs. We love the Mikal Bridges deal. They got it locked up. He's a huge part of that of that going forward. It's still get the DeAndre Ayton deal done to me. Like DeAndre Ayton has, to his credit, come out and played excellent basketball. And again, kind of with your theme of Phoenix still picking it up, he's averaging 17 points, more points than he was last year. His effective field goal percentage is right around the same. His 3-point percentage is non-existent. But his 2-point percentage, his field goal percentage, right around the same as they were last year. Breaking down his efficiency, the VORP is right around the same. His overall box plus minus is a lot higher than it's ever been. Mostly because of the offense. His offense is at 2.4. It's up from a 1.1. His defensive box plus minus is at a 1 even. It was at 0.1 last year. He's given you the consistency and what they need out of him as being basically, I'd say, I guess he's the number 3 option on this team, probably behind Book and behind Chris Paul. He's shown that he's a max contract guy. He's shown that he's important to your winning. Like, is DeAndre Ayton the best center in basketball? Like, is he a Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic type caliber guy? Probably not. And I get that thinking when you go, well, I don't max guys that aren't that level. In the context of this team, he's a max caliber guy. You have to pay him, get the deal done, keep this team together for as long as you can, because clearly they've been successful. And credit to the Suns for not allowing that to be a distraction either. But he's only going to get, the price is only going to go up if they win the title this year. To me, he's justified it with his play. You rewarded Mikal Bridges, reward DeAndre Ayton too. He deserves the contract.
Yeah, I agree. You got to lock him down and get that going. But and I would also say too with don't relax is, you have the third best net rating in the NBA, but check who's in front of you: the Warriors, the Jazz.
Yeah.
Defensively, the Suns are number 2, but who's in front of you? The Warriors. Offensively, I think they're 8th. But, and in that you can hang your hat that you're above the Warriors and a lot of those teams, but who's still ahead of you? Who's number 1? The Jazz. So the 2 guys that are right behind you have you in a few of those categories. So if you relax, and it's only a few games here and there, next thing you know, you're sitting number 3, and then here we go,
Well, that one becomes crucial because I think Utah
Right.
probably more than likely is going to be in that 3 spot. There's a big difference between playing Utah in the second round and
Right.
playing, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Memphis, whether it's whoever it may be.
Mhm.
We're the Western Conference is good. It's not the powerhouse I think that it's been in previous years. At the same time, though, like, yeah, whoever comes out of this conference, like, you're more than likely going to have to be 2 really good elite teams, and then whoever comes out of the East, be it, I mean, right now it looks like it's going to be Brooklyn or Milwaukee. Sorry, Chicago. No disrespect. I need a little. I need a little more front court. They trade for. I'll tell you what. They trade for Jeremy Grant. It's a completely different story.
That's fair.
Miami needs to get healthy. The Sixers need to do something with Ben Simmons before I put them in that tier. But either way, like, you're getting somebody really good out of the East. Either there's not going to be some slack there. Milwaukee just beat them last year. Brooklyn, when we know they're healthy, I think they're the best team in basketball. So, it's like you said, the intensity needs to be there. The good news is for Suns fans is I think it is there. That is the one thing I do have faith in. Like, they're on a mission. They didn't, it's just sometimes it gets weird when you lose the finals. More often than not, the team that loses the finals doesn't always bounce back. I know we've had a couple of notable exceptions in the past few years.
Yeah.
The 2014 Spurs, the one that come to mind the most. But it's hard. It's hard to go to the final.
Well,
LeBron going to the finals every year has made us, kind of not appreciate how difficult it is to get to the finals.
Well, and it's one of those things too where, like, that's probably the worst position to be in because you went the distance, you didn't win it, but you still put the extra miles on, and now you have a shortened off season because of it. And at that point, if you're going to come in second, I'd rather just not make the playoffs and get the rest. It sounds horrible, but
no, I don't know about that. I don't know that I'm there with you because, I mean, it's disappointing if you lose the finals for sure. No one cares about second round losses. Like, our squad just got second round bounced last year, and it was soul crushing. I'll tell you what, I would have felt way better if we had lost in the finals than if we had lost in the second round the way we did.
I mean, I don't know. If we still lost, I still feel like I'd be just as disappointed.
I would have been disappointed, but I would have been happy knowing that they went further than they ever did before. You can live with. I can rest my head on losing in the finals. It's obviously not what I want, but it's like, at least the Sixers haven't made the finals since 01. Like,
So,
I could have, lots changed.
Yeah, if you're the Suns and say for whatever reason last year, if you didn't make the playoffs, then probably a lot of changes would be coming and you wouldn't be able to run it back. So I get what you're saying, but I think I'm just scarred from the pain of losing in the playoffs.
Of course, but I mean, look at how awful. I mean, for the Suns, like, they're a prime example where it's like, look at how awful the Suns have been realistically over the past decade, and how just quickly last year changed everything. Like, these moments they're not guaranteed. They can be fleeting. Like, no, I would much rather be doing this than whatever that was before. Like, I'll take the I'll take the loss in the finals and being competitive. I think there's something to be said if you lose multiple finals in a row like that. I think, like, you lose back to back, God forbid, 3 straight, finals. Like, I don't want to cross sports, but, flip over to football. The Buffalo Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. Dude, I don't even know. Like, that is a different level of pain. I think that's one of the cruelest things I've ever seen in sports.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
So maybe there's something to that argument, but to go once and to just, I don't know. I think I'd rather go once than just kind of never be relevant.
It does get the fans back involved and more, excited and energized about the team.
I mean, we certainly saw it there last year in the desert.
Yep. Yep. So the team right behind them, the Golden State Warriors. My New Year's resolution for them is, obviously get Clay in, integrated into the offense, figure out how that goes, and depending on when you're listening to this, his first game back will have happened, hopefully. But the other thing too would be, uh, lower or work on your turnovers. I believe they're second in the league. Actually, I can pull it up right here for turnover. I got to go back to my regular traditional stats over here, but yeah, they're one of the top teams for turnovers. Number two, they're 29th in the league. The only team worse than them is Houston Rockets. They're giving up almost 15.9 turnovers a game, so that can be kind of tough. And currently on a 2-game losing streak, which if you're 1 game away from the Suns, you don't want to start hitting on any losing streaks. So to me, it would be the turnovers and getting Clay reworked into the offense, which was kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where you have Jordan Poole, who is probably going to be your sixth man now, because he was kind of taking that spot. And obviously, this is going to be down the line once Clay is back up to speed and everything like that. But, Poole is averaging almost 18 points a game over 28 games. So he's a big part of your offense right now.
Yeah,
So making sure that works.
And I guess that's why I think it's a win-win. I mean, my resolution for them is to ease Clay in. That
Yeah.
turnover stat is wild. I mean, just because obviously, like, look at where Houston is and look at where Golden State is right now, and to think that they're second to last in turnovers. Realistically, from an X's and O's perspective, that's probably the answer: is that stop turning the basketball over.
Well, and to me, we talked about it. I think it was the offense, or maybe it was the defense. I was thinking the Warriors' defense is probably a big part. They're the number one defense in the league. Is probably a big part as to why they're still able to win those games. But 16, almost 15 turnovers a game for most teams will lose you those games.
Right. It's like that's the type of thing that could lose you a game come June when we're in meaningful basketball playoff time.
Right.
Back to the Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole thing that we talked about from earlier. My point would be is why. I don't get when everything is working the way it is right now. Like, to me, Klay Thompson is a luxury. Like, you're second in the Western Conference. Like, they might win the finals without Klay Thompson. And you're adding this guy, a flamethrower like Klay, back into the lineup. It's the best case scenario. And I mean, really, it is with James Wiseman, too, as they bring him back from injury as well. But you can ease these guys into the lineup. Klay Thompson doesn't need to come out playing 35 minutes a game. There's no urgency yet. Like, we talked about that 1 seed. Do I think you maybe want to avoid Utah in the second round? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that that's going to be like the end all be all? Like, if Golden State can't beat Utah, they don't deserve to be the champion. Like, at the end of the day, with the way that roster is clicking, like, do I think there's a little bit of role adjustment for Jordan Poole and having to have him come off the bench? And do I think he absolutely needs to be commended for the season that he's had and a big reason why the Warriors have been so successful? Absolutely. Jordan Poole has played phenomenal basketball this year. At the end of the day, though, Klay is Klay. Like, I think Jordan Poole knows that. I think the Warriors, and when Klay Thompson is adjusting, like, I think there are going to be a lot of games, especially early on as he comes back, where Jordan Poole is still playing plenty of more minutes. Like, that's where I think, like, Poole is the luxury that allows them to ease Klay Thompson back in. So to me, I don't get why you would tweak with that now. Any move the Warriors, I think, make should be a fringe type move. I mean, maybe in the offseason, because I mean, yeah, Jordan Poole's value is high. So if someone comes along and just offers you a ridiculous package for Jordan Poole, then of course I would never rule out anything. But I think right now, I think it's the best case scenario with how well he's played.
Well, and that's what I mean. As this is a down the line thing, I just wonder if they consider any kind of movement from that aspect because of how well he played. And like you said, I'm sure some teams are going to come knocking and have decent trade package options, or want to pay him more than maybe the Warriors want to pay him.
Yeah, and I just don't think Klay is ever getting moved. Like, if they were going to move Klay and decided to make it a Stephen Dre thing, I just feel like they would have done it ages ago, because there are plenty of teams that would have given up mucho capital for Klay Thompson.
Oh, I'm sure.
I still think there are plenty of teams that would. I mean, because that's what's crazy about Klay is pre this 2-year absence, he never got hurt. Like, that was the one. He was a model of consistency in that Golden State lineup, and that's why it's so crazy that we just haven't seen him in so long. Just regardless, it's good to see him back out there. It's we want everybody playing. like I said, 2 years is a long time in the NBA.
Yep. So the team right below them, literally by one game, is the Utah Jazz. Currently 8-2 in their last 10. They do have a loss as of recording this. To me, and we talked about Giannis and the Timberwolves, not the Timberwolves. Oh my God, the Bucks. We'll get there. The other green team. But we talked about the Bucks adding.
Celtics fans are like, what?
Yeah, they adding Drew Holiday though, which is essentially what I feel like the Jazz need to do. Where not add Drew Holiday, but add another star to their team. Like they need another reliable piece. And that's not saying everybody on the team's reliable. It just feels like Donovan Mitchell can't do it all on the offense side. And I know you got Rudy Gobert there, but you need another playmaker like that, in my opinion. And that kind of lines up with the continuously falling a little bit short in the playoffs, like last year losing to the Clippers, a shorthanded Clippers. So to me, it's finding that next piece, adding to the team, somebody that complements everything you're already doing, that can take a little bit of the pressure off Donovan, but really elevate the team to where they can be and really make a playoff push this year.
So I'm there if they don't do well this year. I'm not.
Okay.
I this year though,
Want them to do
because
it.
my resolution for them is playoff success. I need to see
Right.
this Jazz team make at least the conference finals. We've seen them go out in the second year or the second round twice now. They were the number one seed last year. Like this Utah Jazz team, as currently constructed, is an objectively good basketball team. There's no way around it. They are going to rack up regular season wins. I don't think there's any way they're worse than 3 by the time this all settles. And there's a very good chance they can be as high as 2 or 1. All it takes is a quick Golden State stumble, a quick Phoenix stumble. They have positioned themselves really in the last 2-ish weeks or so to be right there with them and be at the best record in the conference and have home court advantage. I just need to see it in the playoffs. That's what it all comes down to for me. Like, I'm going to give this core, because it is wide open. Like, I'm going to give this core one more shot. I really like Donovan Mitchell. I really like Rudy Gobert. We've seen they've been able to get plenty of wins during the regular season. They brought Mike Conley in. Like, the depth is there. We need to see if this version is going to work. But this is the prove it year for me with Utah. Like, if they flame out in the second round again, even if it's to a Phoenix or a Golden State, I think you start having to ask harder questions of what this team can look like, because you paid the money to a lot of these guys too. Like, I don't think, like, I don't know where they'd get a third star from without radically changing the roster.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. Yeah, you're going to have to make moves. But to that, you talked about the Jazz probably being in the top 3 or 4, depending on where they land. And I think at this point, if you look at the standings from Suns, Warriors, Jazz, and even Grizzlies now, which I know we'll get into the Grizzlies in a second, I feel like it's pretty safe to say at this point in the season, that's most likely going to be our top 4. Unless like craziness happens and somebody gets injured or another team just catches fire. Like the Grizzlies and the Mavericks are on a really good win streak right now, and Lakers are too. I should put them in that. But between the Grizzlies to the Mavericks, I mean there's a few games there. So, but obviously with the win percent, I just wonder how this is going to, because like teams like win percentages are all thrown off right now. Because of COVID and stuff like that. But
yeah, I don't really care about win percentages as much. And like you said, it's been a little all over the place.
Yeah.
I agree with your point that, like, I think Utah, Phoenix, and Golden State are for sure in the top 3. Yeah. I think Memphis is going to hold too. My question is anyone going to challenge Memphis? Maybe it's Dallas. I probably need to see a little more out of them. Maybe the Lakers finally get it together. They might have figured out a little something that we'll talk about a little later in this episode once we get to them. But Utah is going to be right in the mix. And that's my point, where it's like, I'm not impressed by Utah being in this mix still. We know they can do this. We know that team is that good. We know they're good enough to win a first-round playoff series. I need to see this team make a run. And that's when, because if they make a run, that's when you just, like, I can justify keeping this team together if they're in the conference finals, if they're in the finals. Like, they're a really good basketball. Like, don't get me wrong. The Utah Jazz could very well win the title this year. Like, they're in that caliber. I think really over these past few weeks that they've proven that it's like, no, they can hang with anybody in the West. But if they flame out in the second round, that to me is when I think you need to start asking some harder questions about how good this roster is.
Yeah, I completely agree. So down to Memphis. Um, my resolution for them is to integrate or get more time with John Morant and Dylan Brooks together. They haven't had many games together this year because of injury. And then also is like beat the teams that you should beat. Like we a few games ago, it was back in December the 20th and the 19th. They had back-to-back losses to the Trailblazers and the Thunder, and it's just like those little games that you should be winning could be the reason you have a really bad seeding in the playoffs, like we've just been talking about. So you got to win those games. Those are the ones that if you keep losing those, you're not going to have that home court advantage in the first round. And we want them to get that first round home court advantage. Like I would love for the Grizzlies to get something like that. But yeah, to the Morant and Dylan Brooks thing, I think we only have 8 games together, maybe 9 games together as of when you're listening to this. But those lineups where it's Morant, Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, like they're really good. They're outscoring opponents by a lot. So just getting more experience with that and locking it down, making sure everybody's comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, you hit my resolution. It's actually to get a first round playoff series. Look, Memphis isn't creeping up on anybody anymore. They're here.
Right.
They're for real. The core is breaking out. The kids are fun. John Morant's taking the leap. Dylan Brooks is playing great. He's getting them baskets where they need to. Desmond Bain has been phenomenal for them this season. Jaren Jackson Jr. looks like the guy that you invested a ton of money into. You got to love to
Mm-hmm.
see that. They're checking boxes. I agree with your point that win your winnable games. This is still they have a basically a 4.5 game lead on Dallas right now for the 5 spot. So they've got a cushion. They've earned that. They've done the job in the first part of the season.
Right.
Now shore that up. Don't let anybody creep up on you.
Yep.
And look, we know how the grindhouse gets when it comes playoff time. Like that crowd is going to be raucous. The team is super fun to watch. The fans are invested. And the good news with the Grizzlies right now is what we kind of have said all season long is that as they continue to progress, this is house money. There's no expectations for the Grizzlies right now. All these guys are 23 and 22 years old. They're not even remotely near their primes. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
you continue to see them develop and take these steps, that gives you, the long-term enthusiasm for Memphis. And I think that will be there. If they're able to get a first round playoff series and win a first round playoff series, like I think they can, look, that right off the rip is a massive success for Memphis. You got to be thrilled. And listen, no one's going to want to play them come playoff time and for the rest of the season. Come playoff time, nobody wants to play this Memphis team because they're fearless. They know they're young and they know that in the past, nobody has thought they were supposed to be here. Now, part of that transition becomes, you're not the underdog anymore. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to creep up on people. Like this
They're
isn't
gonna be
the
ready
the
for you.
us
Yeah.
this is a long way from Andre Iguodala not wanting to play with you guys, and where it's like, no, we got to show him we're for real. Like, no, you guys are for real. Now, what happens when a target starts getting placed on your back a little bit?
Yeah, when teams are really looking at you and circling that date on the calendar to make sure they're ready for you, you gotta live up to that hype, and I think they will. It's just you gotta those little games, you gotta beat the ones that you're supposed to beat. And again, I know that's really nitpicky because they're on a 7-game win streak. It's just you should beat the Thunder, you should beat the Portland Trailblazers right now. You
Oh
know,
yeah, I mean, I love this team. Don't get me wrong. No, if we're nitpicking, it's not because we don't care. Like y'all
yeah.
know, the bandwagon Grizz fans are back, baby.
Hmm.
I would love to see Memphis play Golden State. Those games have been really fun and intense and chippy this year in the regular season. I would love for that matchup to happen somehow.
I would be about it.
I mean, you need a little bit of help with the seating. It would require Golden State jumping up probably, but I mean, hey, we certainly know that's plausible. All right, let's get to 5. Dallas, 21 and 18. Like we said, on a 5-game win streak going into this podcast.
Yeah, for me, it's get Luca back to his. I've been reading a lot that people are saying his condition, he's out of shape this season. And I don't feel like I have any ability to say if he is or isn't, like, personally, but his free throw percentage is down, his field goal percentage is down, and his turnovers are up. So to me, it's get Luca back and more efficient in that aspect.
Well, and it's Luca definitely has to get better, but I think it gets kind of to the point where it's like they haven't. The Mavericks are a good team, but they're still missing that one like superstar level guy. They took the swing on KP, It just KP is a good player when he's healthy, but he's not the great number two guy that I think you hoped he would be. Like the Mavericks have good players in KP, in Tim Hardaway Jr. Jalen Brunson's had a really nice season for the
Yeah.
Mavericks. So, like again, they're a 5 seed in the Western Conference. I don't want to make it sound like the sky is falling, but I do think if they're unable to get the superstar guy, be it the draft, via free agency, whatever it may be, they got to really commit to shoring up that roster because I don't think there's enough top level there right now. And I think it's a scenario where if we're not getting, top 10 player in the league, Luca, every single night, there is a chance they lose that game.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I think that's what they have to do, and maybe that's part of it. Too much is being put on Luka right now, and that's why the percentages and the turnovers and everything are up, or
Well,
down depending on the percentages. But
even if he was going, I don't have I just don't have the fear of this Dallas team.
yeah,
I don't really know how else to say it. It just falls off quickly for me. Like after KP and after, I mean, Kleber's not bad, but like, is that where we're at? We're reaching where it's like, yeah, okay, he's not bad. Um, I don't love their depth at all. And that's somewhere where I really, especially off the bench, I just think they got to commit to getting better. Guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Dwight Powell and Reggie Bullock, like it's not really cutting it enough if you're going to want to get to that, upper echelon of the Western Conference for me.
yeah, I can get behind that. All right, so then we go down to the fun and exciting Lakers. And I think, with my resolution, I just point out that LeBron James is absolutely balling right now. Like since December, he's got 30 and a half points per game, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. But in those 17 games has resulted in 8 losses. LeBron's among the leaders in assists and in points, and he's shooting a career high in 3-point percentages. Like he's doing what he can to try to win these games, and some of them aren't coming out as wins. So the people around the Lakers, other than LeBron, like you gotta win those games when LeBron's going off. And it's only really going about 50-50 right now.
Yeah. And so I don't want to be small sample sizey, but I'm gonna be. Shout to Laker Film Room on Twitter. Keep starting LeBron at center. They might be onto something. The Lakers are 5-0. They're averaging 127 points. We know Anthony Davis has no intention of playing the center, which is still insane to me.
Well,
But
he's hurt he's been out for a bit too.
Oh, and so you got to get him healthy. But hear me out. When he comes back, let me keep LeBron at 5 and play AD at 4. Are they on to something?
Or just go all batshit crazy and put AD at point guard.
The Russell Westbrook efficiency tour has also gotten a little bit better since last 5 games. It's starting to click a little bit more since LeBron is going to 5. I'm not saying it's going to fix everything, but they're at least looking like they can play some competent basketball right now. It's not a complete, the just hilarious wasteland that it kind of was at the beginning of the year. Shout out to Malik Monk too. He's been going crazy past few weeks.
What did I see? I saw a tweet about Malik Monk. I don't remember what it was.
Someone was already asking if he's the best minimum pickup ever, which is so late. That's so Lakers. Like, come on. Are you guys kidding me?
Maybe that's what I saw. I forget what it was, but I definitely saw a tweet about Malik Monk and it made me laugh. But yeah, so I mean, the Lakers are in an interesting spot. Hopefully, down the line, like you said, maybe they're on to something. We'll see where it goes. But as of right now, you just got to win the games where LeBron's giving you his all, and the best LeBron that you're getting, those need to be wins. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the fact that he's playing at this level at 37, like you're getting,
right.
top tier performances out of LeBron James every single night. Everybody else, I know the roster construction is flawed, but it's like all these other guys got to step up too. AD's got to get healthy.
Right.
Russell's got to stop turning the ball over.
Right.
Like, they got to be better.
Well, and so then that kind of is a similar notion that I have for Denver, because Denver's dealing with a lot of injuries, So to me, the main thing is just help Jokic. Jokic has been going great this season. Like you could argue he's having a better season this year than last year.
Yeah, he's
Um,
borderline the MVP. He's not going to get the votes, but like
yeah,
because I think there's fatigue there, and I don't think he's going to get it over KD and Steph, but he should be right
right.
there in that conversation,
Like
100%.
they're a plus 10.2 net rating, which is like similar to Warriors and Jazz style when Jokic is on the floor, and then they are a negative 10.2 rating when he's off the floor. So I'm sorry, never a negative 13 when he's off the floor. So like somebody else step up. You know, so you need to help Jokic and you know we need to find a way to, to help him out. He can't do it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of my resolution with Denver is just to get healthy. I don't really think that, I don't think there's much help they can give Jokic, and that's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
the problem. Is we talk about Jamal Murray, who hasn't played at all this season, Michael Porter Jr., who now hasn't played in weeks, so they're right there. There go their second and third best players, depending on how you rank those guys. Will Barton has missed, large amounts of time. He's back now, but he's missed points at this season. So, you know, I agree in the sense that, like, yeah, get Jokic some help and they'll be fine. I also think, for what it's worth, that help hopefully will naturally come back. And that's
With
kind of,
health. Yeah.
there's a chance you get Jamal Murray back later in the year. Again, he's going to be in that Klay Thompson, like, ease him in type of camp. I don't think you're just going to, run off Jamal 50 minutes of Jamal Murray like they did in the bubble that one night or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was in that overtime game. Um, Michael Porter Jr., we saw there were pictures of him shooting around. That's encouraging. Obviously with it being the back injury, that's what you worried about long term. Um, Denver, I think if anything, to me, it like you said, it's a credit to how good Nikola Jokic is that they are just staying afloat right now.
Mm-hmm.
That they're able to, that they're in playoff position, that they haven't totally gone under. Because he's pulling the wagon right now. They're 19-18 on the season. The good thing is that for their resolution, like I said, a lot of that hopefully should just happen naturally.
Yeah. Well, and see, so I kind of saved my get healthy nod for the Clippers, which are right below them, because they have been dealing with a ton of injuries. You know, like you got Paul George out with the elbow. Kawhi's been out since the beginning of the season. Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, Morris, like you got everybody out, and so um, you just got to get everybody back.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Like
really what it
I'm kind of the
comes
same
to.
way. Like I don't want to sound like I'm breezing over the Clippers. Like this feels disrespectful how little we're going to talk about them. But I'm
But
kind of the same way. It's just like everybody's hurt. Like what am I supposed to judge with the Clippers right now? Like
right.
like any takeaway is so like once Paul George went down, like maybe it would have been different if PG was there. But like when Paul George down, now the good news is there are reports starting to buzz that Kawhi Leonard may be able to go come playoff time. I still got to believe that kind of like I got to see
Yeah.
that to believe it. And even if he is ready to go, like are we getting top 5 player in the league Kawhi? Or are we getting return off injury? Like we don't want to ruin the end of his career type Kawhi.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should be leaning towards the latter, honestly, at this point. Like if the Clippers are going to win a title with this core, they need everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean that's health is the name of the game. If Kawhi's ready, he's back in. Hopefully you'll get Paul George back, and that it doesn't linger too long because I mean they're in danger of slipping big time. They're already in playoff play in position. Minnesota's got the same record as them. We're gonna do balling and falling here in a second before we get back to Minnesota.
Well, and I would say to me, and this is no nod at Minnesota or no hate on Minnesota. They should, because I'll say the same thing for them. Is like both of these teams should at least their goal should at least be at stay in playoff contention or play in tournament contention. The guys coming back for the Clippers should be able to do them. But then from the same side, if you're the Timberwolves, it's like, yo, we've got the guys we've got. We should be able to get in and do that over the Clippers.
Yes, I agree, and
So
we'll
we'll
get back
talk
to
about
that.
it.
We
Yeah.
will get back to that in a little bit. All right, who's balling? Who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad, and so I am going to start with my friend Joel Embiid, who is balling this week. Yeah, it's a homer pick. I don't want to hear about it. Uh, 36 points against the Wizards, 36 points against the Raptors, 34 against the Nets, 31 against the Rockets, 31 against the Magic. 31 last night against the Spurs. All of those games wins. MVP'd is, I believe, the term that's going around.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, man. Like Jokic and him are just on a different level when it comes to the big men. They just, as good as some of these other guys are, those two are just remarkable. Um, I'm never mind. I don't want to. I can't be a homer a little bit and talk about that comparison. I don't think Embiid is better than Jokic. I guess that's my point. I do think Jokic. Like I'm at the point where I think Jokic is slightly better than Embiid, but man,
Yeah.
Embiid too. Joel's been hooping this last month, and it should be getting. And like I said, again, dealing with COVID outages. Maxey didn't play. Tybal missed some time. We know Tobias Harris has been struggling all year too. So there's been a lot of lifting on his plate. Again, it is me once again saying, Daryl Morey, get this guy some help, make the Ben Simmons deal happen. We gotta surround him and make a
Well,
run.
and I saw the other day someone put out saying that the Sixers still want to try to make it work with Ben, and I'm just like, bro, that ship is so gone.
It's gone.
Like it is gone.
If there was a possibility where Ben Simmons could come back and genuinely play at a high level, I would say whatever. It's a different story. Maybe he wants to turn the playoff stuff around. Because I think listen, they'd objectively be a better basketball team with Ben Simmons. I'm not gonna,
Sure.
I'm not gonna start denying reality either. But we don't need to rehash that. They got to get something done. Don't let ego get in the way. I guess that's my biggest thing: is do not let ego get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Get the complementary players and take a swing at this.
So my ball-on is for all the NBA contracts that became fully guaranteed.
Okay.
There was 19 of them. I'm not going to go through everybody, but that's cool to see that a bunch of the guys getting the guaranteed contracts, and they had to do it on the 7th because the fully guaranteed contracts have to be done by the 10th. So as of this podcast, probably going to already be past that, but they had to clear waivers prior to January 10th, so they pretty much had to get it done on the 7th the other day, and 19 players came through. I was trying to see if that was like what's the record for players getting fully guaranteed contracts at this time during the year, if 19's high or low or average, but I couldn't find anything that kind of said that. It seems like it's a lot to me, but that's my ballin'.
Yeah, you got to get deep into the numbers there.
Which I am hella too lazy for that.
I'm gonna sound like such a hard. Everyone just collectively groan at me when I say my fallen pick. My fallen pick is the Celtics. So the Embiid Celtics combo going on a little bit there. The Celtics blew a 25-point lead to the Knicks the other night. It's their third 19-point lead blown on the season. Justin, last week with your New Year's resolutions, which everyone should go back and listen to again if you haven't heard our Eastern Conference episode, we talked about the Celtics in close games.
Yes.
Here's another example of them losing a close game. Coach Doka afterwards talked about their mental toughness, and he said, we're getting rattled. Things are starting to happen. But realistically, and especially the added damage to that being against the Knicks are a game ahead of them now. RJ Barrett with just an outrageous buzzer beater. That was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But the Celtics are now out of playing game position. And, for all these, we talk about Indy. We talked about Atlanta's struggles a little bit. Boston may need to, I think we're there, where you may need to start to take a big look in the mirror and not just with everybody except Tatum and Brown either.
Yeah, it's my fallen's actually going to be the Hawks, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, man, it's like, dude, you guys can't get out of your own way. It feels like right now. It's the drama's getting to them almost. It feels like, from an outside perspective, at least,
Yeah, it's tough because I think that, especially when we're in the first year of a new head coach, and obviously the transition with Brad Stevens going up into the front office, you want to give them a leash, but it also feels like this core hasn't really changed since they made that conference finals. Like a couple of moves that have been made haven't worked. And so we're at the point now where it's like, I know you want to give it patience, but realistically, how much patience are you going to give this team? It's a colossal failure for Boston if they're not even in play-in game position. That's unfathomable when you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on your team.
And we talked about it. How many games they've lost in clutch situations. It's, you even make that a 50-50 and you're winning half of those. As they're back in it, they're sitting real good in a playoff standing. So it's an easy, I don't want to say easy, it could be a quick turnaround in a way. But I at this point, I wonder if this team right now is capable of doing it.
No, and sure. Well, and that's I don't think they are. I think a lot of it has to do with their depth too. Again, I'm not even pinning this on the top two guys in JB and Jason Tatum, But look, they've missed on draft picks. Other decisions, haven't necessarily looked great in hindsight. I mean, one of them is Terry Rozier. I mean, look at that. Granted, that's big time captain hindsight now with how Rozier has been playing in Charlotte. But it's like, man, I'll tell you what, Celtics team definitely looks like they could have used him right now coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Just a couple of other things like that. But they are at a point where you may got to look in the mirror and make some hard decisions, because the quickest way to rebuild this roster is to trade one of the big two. Like if you trade Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, you're going to get a king's ransom.
Yep.
Like somebody out there is going to give you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So my fallen is the Hawks, which you kind of just mentioned a second ago, and it's because there's some belief around the NBA that the Hawks are going to be pretty active during the trade deadline area. And one of the guys they think that could be eligible for a trade is Cam Reddish, because there is some belief that they would rather trade him than pay him. He is eligible to sign an extension this summer, and the deal obviously would start in 23-24 season. So fallen because we went from Hawks of run it back, let's see if you could do it again, to now we're talking about trading some guys, and it's not looking great.
If you believe Mark Stein, they popped up in the Ben Simmons rumors recently as well, and that they are one of those teams that I think has the type of players that could get something done.
Yeah.
It's just so wild with me with Atlanta, because again, we talked about this a little bit last week. Atlanta's second in the league in offensive rating. It's just on the other end where they're giving it all up. And, we're at a point. I mean, again, this is the time last year where Atlanta kicked it into gear and went on that run and went all the way to the conference finals. I just haven't seen the signs of that this year. And that's the problem, is like they got to start winning games
well,
fast.
To be fair, I don't think we saw the signs for it last year until the firing happened, and then all of a sudden it was like,
yeah, but it was instant as soon as the firing. They fired Lloyd Pearson, brought Nate McMillan in, and it was instant. It hasn't been quite so instant this year. And it's not, again, Trae Young is playing excellent basketball. You can't put it on him. It's just, where else are they getting it from consistently? John Collins has been good, but, he hasn't been great necessarily. Clint Capella's been kind of who he is. Kevin Huerter's been down a little bit. So they have plenty of good players on that roster. So like you said, the good thing for Atlanta is they have a ton of flexibility. They have guys who, you mentioned Cam Reddish, he'll draw interest for sure. Kongwu would draw interest if he went on the market. I mean, hell, if they even decided to get real wild and traded John Collins, he's somebody that I think would bring a lot back potentially. The only guy that feels untouchable here is Trae. I think that goes without saying. But yeah, I think you have to. You're not in panic mode if you're Atlanta, but yeah, them being out of play-in game a year after going to the conference finals, that's pretty jarring.
And that's just surprising, I guess. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, it you can see how quick it can change,
Well, yeah, they're 3-7 in their last 10 too, and that's the thing is they're on a road trip right now. They just lost the Lakers last night. They've got the Clippers tomorrow.
To be fair, they have been dealing, and I know every team's going to say, well, we have too, but they've been dealing with a ton of COVID stuff. They've been going through it. So
I mean, Atlanta ripped off a 7-game win streak from November 14th to November 26th. They won 7 in a row. They beat Milwaukee, Orlando, Boston, Charlotte, OKC, San Antonio, and Memphis. And it's just kind of been real inconsistent since then. And it's ironic because before that 7-game win streak, they'd had a 6-game losing streak. So, if you look at the way the schedule is and you look at these teams' results, it kind of just reflects in the record. They're a 500 team. They win some games, they lose some games. Their next 5 are they're in LA against the Clippers. That should be a winnable game with all the Clippers injuries. I still think Atlanta should win that game. Then they've got a home and home with Miami. They've got the Knicks and they've got Milwaukee. They got to start putting a couple of these together. I mean, especially against the Knicks, that's a team who you're directly competing with right now for standings. If they're going to climb the ladder, and again, they're not far out. That's the thing, and that's the same when we bring up the Celtics, where it's like they could get back in play-in position really quickly, but they still got a little bit to climb before they get back into real life play-in position. They're pretty far off from 6 right now. It's not. Again, we saw what the Hawks did last year. It's not impossible. But they're a good 4.5 games back for Cleveland right now. Atlanta is, and Boston's a full 4. They're going to have to start stringing together some wins here sooner than later.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so, I just don't know if it's going to happen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I don't know if it
I
will
don't
this year.
I don't think it's going to happen this year. So, all right, on to non-playoff teams. We kind of mentioned Minnesota a little bit ago before jumping into Ballin' and Fallin'. To me, Minnesota's thing, it was what I was talking about, is you guys are not scoring or winning consistently. And when you have a lineup that includes Towns, Russell, and Edwards, like, I feel like that should be a sign of a little more consistency and a little more wins. So for me, it's get at least into the play-in tournament. You have a roster on paper that's better than a lot of rosters. Oh, not a lot of, at least some of the rosters above you. And you're not dealing with some of the problems that they are, and AKA the Clippers, who are dealing with literally everyone being injured. Like, you should be able to get better than them. So to me, it's at least get into the play-in tournament, at least.
Yeah, and you finally got your guys together. Like that's always been the thing with this Minnesota team is you've never had your supposed big three with this roster is Karl Anthony Towns, it's D'Angelo Russell who you traded for, and it's Anthony Edwards. I mean, now they finally played together. This is the first consistent stretch that we've seen out of all these guys. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. That's actually my same exact resolution is get into the playoffs. Like you want to see these guys get some experience. They haven't made the playoffs in years. They had the 1 year with Jimmy Butler, but that's been about it for Minnesota. You've wanted to see the young guys carry the load. This is a prime example for them to carry the load, get into the playoffs, play some meaningful games and start winning some basketball games. You got to change the culture in Minnesota.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And it's baffling that a team like that can't get to the playoffs. So just got to do it. So what do you have for the Spurs? What would you say for Spurs, who are by the way right behind Timberwolves in
Yeah,
standings?
well, so it's interesting because the Spurs are in playing position right now. They've only got 15 wins. They're 15 and 23.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my thing with the Spurs is just kind of try to find some identity.
Whatever
You
you
look at
are,
their
yeah.
numbers, they can get a little better defensively. Their offensive rating is right around 16, but their other numbers are better. With the Spurs, though, I just kind of like we know what Dejounte Murray has been great this year, and that
I
I think
want
is
them
the
on the
one thing.
Sixers, and I've
And so do I.
wanted them to do that. I wanted them to do that at the beginning of the season, but
I wasn't there at the beginning of the year, but so you got one. You wanted to see Dejounte Murray break out. It seems like he's doing that, so that's good there. Besides that, you've got a couple. You got Lonnie Walker, you got Keldon Johnson, Derek White, Jakob Pertl. Like these are guys who, I want to see them break out. I want to see them take the steps. And I guess for the Spurs, it's just more taking stock of what you have and picking a direction.
yeah.
Like the Spurs are in this weird playing game scenario right now. And again, you've got a definitively good piece in Dejounte Murray. I would almost rather see the Spurs go in the tank and try to get high end talent. Like I just think they're trying to do this in between game right now. Um, Now trading DeRozan and moving on from Marcus Aldridge were the right moves, I think for sure. That I think was going nowhere fast, and that's kind of with that average thing. Now that you're free
Mm-hmm.
from that, it's let the young guys play, but I don't know. Like I think it's kind of like if there are guys who you're not confident can be a part of this team in the next 4 to 5 years, I think you start to evaluate who that is.
Well, and so I kind of am similar in that, other than my sub being trade Murray to the 76ers, is, he's, definitely the best player on the team. He potentially is could potentially, hopefully get an all-star nod or most improved player debate. But they do have a really young roster. They have a decent offense, but a bottom 10 defense. So it's kind of similar to what you were saying. Like, kind of stock up and see what you have and
Mhm.
develop the young guys. Let the young guys get their reps and do their thing, but also be willing to move on from them and make something happen and get yourself a star. Because if you go to NBA.com right now and pull up at traditional player general stats and you filter by points per game, the entire first page, which is 49 players, not one Spur is on there.
No, the highest
It would be
scorer is
Murray.
Murray. Murray's averaging 18.2, and then
And
it's Keldon and Derek White are both at like 14 and a half essentially.
yeah, so Murray is 52. So he's up there. Don't get me wrong. He's right behind Drew Holiday in points per game average. Like he's it's a lot. But what I'm saying is, like, your best player in terms of the stars is pretty low down there, and so the team, you just don't have a lot of guys that give people or even make a casual player or fan want to watch them play.
No, and build up the war chest a little bit too. Like you've got guys in like Doug McDermott, for example, who you could trade. Thad Young is not playing for them right now. Essentially, he's basically healthy and chilling in purgatory until they decide to move on from him. But he's somebody who, you'll just evaluate what you have. Derek White's 27. Again, where does he fit in with his core? But kind of, let the young guys play, like you said. Let them be free. Kind of pick an identity here. All right, so next up we got Sacramento. We're officially out of play-in game position now, and these next two really will be kind of similar for me. But for Sacramento, it's 16 and 25. My belief is just take a swing. Like you haven't made the playoffs in ages. This team was built to make the playoffs, and they're not currently. But there's a lot of definitive good talent on that roster. Like you look at it's really top heavy. Between Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, even a guy like Rashawn Holmes, Davion Mitchell looks like he's going to be a player. We obviously want to see how the Marvin Bagley situation shakes out too. It looks, a fresh start is going to be needed there. But if I'm the Kings, it always felt kind of repetitive, the backcourt once they drafted Mitchell with Fox and Halliburton and Mitchell. Like, I guess my thing with the Kings is I don't be afraid to make a splash. Like you have a core that can really, like you could put together a package for basically any star that goes on the market. And I would like to see the Kings necessarily do that when you have good, again, something around a Buddy Hield, a Harrison Barnes, a Marvin Bagley, a young guy who needs a fresh start. But for Barnes and Hield, the guys who just don't look like they're going to, contribute to winning basketball there, who plenty of contenders would love to have on their rosters. Like, I would just love to see Sacramento make a splash, go out and try to get somebody high end and pair them with whoever you keep. If that's Hallie and Fox, then try to get a third guy and pair him with them. Like, again, like the Kings for me are a prime example of a team that should be going after a Ben Simmons or anybody of that caliber that gets on a market. Like, take a swing. Like, why not? Why would that not work there to me?
Well, to me, yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. I mean, they have one of the worst defensive ratings. I think they're 25th for the NBA. Is why not, and why not go approach the 76ers with Fox, like offer up a deal where maybe the Sixers get Fox and something else, or even go for Jaylen Brown, like we just talked about.
Right, it doesn't even have to be Ben Simmons.
Right, but I think Ben Simmons fits your whole, if your defensive sucks, Ben Simmons is going to be the guy that will fix that probably the quickest. And I think there's been some signs that Halliburton can be a scorer for them with Fox out of the lineup. So like it gives you a little bit of room, and like you said, Buddy Hield, another player that teams making a move or trying to win a whole thing are going to be interested in. So I kind of line up with you in the sentiment that it's not going to work. Sacramento, the team you have, is not going to go anywhere right now. You need to make moves, and Ben Simmons or Jaylen Brown, or somehow getting both, which would be phenomenal. I don't know how you do that, but if you get those guys, then you're rolling.
Yeah, or just any superstar that comes on the market, they position themselves to be able to take advantage of that. And that's kind of my thing with Sacramento is you don't really need to get super duper splashy about it. There are plenty of guys on the roster. That leans into our next team, the Portland Trailblazers, who, for the love of God, burn it down. Like, burn this roster down. It is not working. This is not like Sacramento where I'm like, oh, just retool it a little bit. It'll be fine. No, everything that is Dame Lillard needs to get traded, and they need to start over, and we need to do something else because it is not working here.
Well, and I was going to look up. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I mean, Dame's missed a bunch of games, but even when he's playing, they're not winning, And so I kind of agree with you in that. The beginning of the season started off a little bit better, I guess you could say that, but it feel like it's been a downward spiral.
Listen, CJ McCollum is 30 years old. Norman Powell is 28. Robert Covington is 31. Yusuf Nurkic is 27. Larry Nance is 29. It is not working. Blow it to smithereens. They've tried to make adjustments. They've tried to retool. This team has hit its peak as currently constructed. For the love of God and for the sake of Damian Lillard, who still wants to stay with you guys, do something different. Blow it up. Don't be afraid to take the swing. I'm telling you, put up the yard sale signs. Everything must go.
All of it. Got to get out of here. I agree. For Pelicans, just my New Year's resolution is just stop sucking with this Zion situation. It's like it sounds bad, but it's like, dude, every other week he's now in Portland and he's rehabbing in Portland away from the team. And it's being delayed that he's going to come back and play now. Oh, and he's upset about this. Oh, and he's not going to practice. Oh, and he's falling asleep during this. It's just like, bro, it is so much negativity around that. You've only had him for so long. He's only played so many games for you. Like, this sucks.
It mutually sucks, and that's the
Yeah.
problem. Is where it's like the Pelicans have a zillion reasons to be frustrated with Zion as well.
Yeah.
Zion also has reasons to be frustrated with the Pelicans, and that's kind of my thing. Is it's like get some organizational stability.
Yeah.
Willie Green hasn't necessarily been great this year, but look at what he's had to deal with. Like, let him coach and see what you got there on that front. Like, not just turn it over right away. Try mend the fence with Zion. Like, I understand that again there are mutual frustrations to be had here. Zion's weight's definitely a thing. Some of his rehab stories that have been coming out aren't exactly great. Like you said, you mentioned him falling asleep in film sessions, but it's like at the end of the day, the Pelicans need Zion Williamson to be healthy if they're going to put together any type of streak of winning basketball games anytime soon. Mend the fence, try to keep your superstar player, and just try to keep some consistency. Build the foundation, build the culture. There just hasn't been any of that since Anthony Davis left. This is your chance too. Let's start getting some pieces together.
I agree. So what are you feeling for the Thunder? Because I feel
Oh,
like they only have one real bright spot right now.
yeah, it's Shai Gilgeous. Well, I have two: Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what's his name, Josh Giddey.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
those two, I think you can be excited about. I think he looks like a piece. Besides that, with Oklahoma City Thunder, I guess my thing is just essentially start cashing in on all these picks. Like
Yeah.
all these picks are great, and like you said, it gives you essentially lottery tickets because you just need to hit on a couple, and this can go up real fast. But all these draft picks aren't really doing any good if you're not hitting on them. And the quiet thing is that OKC hasn't really been hitting on him recently. I mean, again, Giddey looks like a good pick. Like there definitely looks like a piece moving forward. I like Lou Dort. I think Lou Dort has obviously proven that he can be a guy, a real solid 3-and-D piece. I'm as high on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as anybody. I think the guy's got all-star potential. Like he to me is the guy that all this builds around. But with OKC, it's just like, yo, don't wait forever. Don't let the chest don't do what Danny Ainge did and just let the chest sit there until it eventually isn't worth quite what it could have been at one point. Like Oklahoma City should be getting in on any type of deal that needs to be made, whether it's financial. If there's an opportunity where they can bring in a young player who maybe needs to just a change of scenery, like all this flexibility they have right now, use it. Insert yourself to take swings on young guys who still have some potential. Get yourself ready to be in any superstar trade that may be. Package up to maybe get a higher draft pick if need be. Like, just make sure you don't let it go to waste. That's my thing with OKC.
And I was going to say, you saw that OKC recently traded with the Jazz and got another 2028 second round pick. I was like,
Right.
oh, they just keep on adding. Like, it's fine. But, here we are. We're still doing it. So I kind of agree with you. Is start thinking about how you're going to cash in on all the picks that you have now. It's time to start turning those into players,
Yeah, like you just got to. All these picks are great, but they're abstract. At the end of the day,
Yes.
like you have one definitive guy that you're building around, and for my money, you have two young guys who I'm keeping and that I'm excited about. Otherwise, but it's like you got to start to put something together a little bit.
To me, it is the same as some frat bro coming up telling me he's got $200,000 worth of Bitcoin. It's like, okay, pull it out and turn it into real cash. Let's see it. And,
Justin, that is terrible advice. Wait a minute, don't do, fam. I hear you. Like I hate crypto. Crypto Twitter is maybe the worst Twitter out there. Like they're really up there, and that's coming from someone who owns crypto.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I don't know if that's good advice. Listen, you got 200K in Bitcoin. I might let that chill for a little bit.
I'm not saying do it, but it's like cool. But like it's not gonna.
No, everybody's got Bitcoin story about when they had Bitcoin in 2011 and then just did something stupid with it or like lost the password or something like that.
I'm there, but that's okay.
Oh, that's oh no, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. Well, Houston's won 11 games. They're the last one on this episode. What do you got for Houston?
Houston is that bro that took out the money when it was $20. He had $20 in crypto in 2012 and took it out in 2013. Honestly, for me, it's just like let Jalen Green develop a little bit more and build some hype around him, but also like it's okay if you don't win at this point. You might as well just get another high pick.
Yeah, I mean, Houston is obviously going to be in contention. I mean, they're 4 wins ahead of. They've really come a long way from us talking about them being the worst team in the league,
Yeah.
maybe of all time. They are a full. I mean, yeah, they won 11 games at this point. They're a full 4 up on Detroit and Orlando. Now they've got a 2-game loss cushion on Oklahoma City, and then 3 on New Orleans, Portland, and Indy. So they're in a good position. They're going to be competing for the number 1 pick. The good news is they
Right.
don't really need to do too much on that front. I'm interested with Houston to see if they make some moves at the deadline. Christian Wood is a name who's come up a lot. He's 26 years old. I think a lot of contenders would love to take a swing on him.
I would also say, not to cut you off, I would also say put out the fire if there is one. We talked about it in my falling last week with the Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. and the assistant coach beef or whatever it was. If there's anything to that, put that fire out like now.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is it's like just keep everything in perspective, I guess was my resolution with the Rockets, is where it's like, let the young guys play, help them develop good habits. Again, like you said, keep the drama low. Like the basketball team is bad. You don't need to add any issues into the picture with that. It seems that, Christian Wood has been back playing. Same with Kevin Porter Jr., obviously hit the buzzer beater the other night. So it's good to see them back in the mix. You want to see them playing, obviously, and you hope that situation works itself out. If I had one, I mean, like, give Jalen, like, I want Jalen Green taking shots, but like, just try to develop him so that it's not gunning as much per se.
Sure.
There are a couple of shots when you watch Jalen Green where you're like, fam, I know you got, like, no pun intended, the green light, but what are you doing right now? But besides that, like, I don't really. It's just about development. It's about development, and it's about I mean, really, it sounds lame, but it's like get the number 1 pick, like get a top 3 pick, like add another high end guy into that core with Jalen Green. So,
Yep.
and that's realistically what it's all about for Houston. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys. This was essentially like a jumbo 2-part episode that we recorded on 2 different days, just because we know we kind of had a little bit of a gap there over the holidays. So appreciate you guys being patient. Hopefully you enjoy the double dose of the year's resolutions. We will be back with much more regularity now that the calendar's flipped. Promise. In the meantime, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player FM, Spreaker, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and connect with us on YouTube, Drive and Dish NBA. You can watch a video version of the podcast if it so pleases you.